In today's Black Clover video, we talk about Asta's new power in terms of the true potential of Ki, based on what we already know in Black Clover and also the cultural understanding of Ki in Japan. We show you how and why things like Ki zone, Ki transformation and even Ki manipulation might be possible. If you end up liking this video, consider subscribing. Please enjoy this video. Let's go! The last chapter of Black Clover revealed a glimpse of the true potential of Ki. In one brief moment, Ichika, Yami's sister, could increase her own Ki by 100 times. And that's crazy when you think about it. In Black Clover, Ki is a natural energy that can more or less determine a person's strength. So if a person is able to increase their own Ki by a factor of 100, it basically means that that person has become 100 times stronger at that moment. At least when it comes to the physical aspect of an attack, which is a big part of Asta's fighting style. Although he uses a lot of anti-magic, he still relies mostly on the power of his swords and does the physical damage his swords do. He often defeats his enemies with brute force. So if Asta were able to increase his Ki 100-fold, it will make his physical abilities literally 100 times more effective. In theory, this mainly includes strength and speed. And speed is also very important. If Asta really manages to become 100 times faster, then he definitely doesn't need magic anymore. So Ki is the perfect energy for Asta to become the strongest magic knight. We don't know what Ki really is and what potential Asta could actually achieve with it. We know that Ryo doesn't seem to have magic, which makes him just like Asta. And yet he's the equivalent of the Wizard King in the Land of the Rising Sun, the Shogun. Of course his eye helps him, but if his eye doesn't really help him fight in terms of physical damage, he must be extremely strong in physical terms. He must have a certain strength that helps him defeat the strongest enemies and also allies in his country. If Asta somehow manages to get to that level in just 7 days, then along with anti-magic, there is nothing and no one that can stop him. Well, maybe Yuno because this man is blessed by Tabata. But anyway, so let's take a closer look at what Ki actually is in Black Clover and also its life energy in our world, especially in the Japanese culture. As mentioned earlier in Black Clover, it is a natural energy that is a part of every person and also object. Ki exists separately from mana. Basically, absolutely everything is Ki. Ki can be sensed and can be used to predict attacks and movements of others, including natural objects and events that occur in nature. It can also be used to understand emotions and lies. You see, the point is not only that Ki is part of everything, but also part of every aspect of an intelligent organism. Thus, Ki is also the most important aspect in combat. When it comes to Ki in real life, we don't really know how exactly Tabata applied the concept to Black Clover or what version or belief of Ki was used as a reference. However, it is definitely worth looking into so that we cover all the possibilities. So let's take a closer look at Japanese Ki as we reflect this concept on Black Clover. Ki is a Japanese word meaning spirit or energy. It is often thought of as life force, and so it may have something to do with the life force in Black Clover, at least in some ways. Some believe that there are 3 types of Ki. Tai Ki, energy coming from the atmosphere. Kai Ki, energy that comes from the ground. And Nai Ki, energy that resides in the body. This makes sense since we know that Ki is a part of every living being but also of objects. The question is whether humans can control Ki that comes from the atmosphere and natural objects, just as spirit users can control mana that comes from the element associated with their elemental spirit. Of course, that would be very convenient for Asta if he could, for example, absorb Ki energy with Licht swords and then use it in basically the same way Licht did with absorbed mana. That's definitely a nice idea, especially considering that magic should also contain Ki, and so Asta could absorb the Ki from spells directly with his magic sword. Back to Ki in Japanese culture. In Japanese culture, there are many ways to use Ki. For example, by concentrating energy on a particular point where all physical, mental and spiritual energies converge for a moment. Perhaps we saw something similar with Ichika in the last chapter because we saw how her arm and hand were highlighted, as if the Ki she released was concentrated mainly on that spot. There's also the concept of unification and concentration. This means concentrating one's Ki to the point where it can no longer be held in the body. So basically the idea here is to release the Ki instead of holding and focusing it on one spot. Some believe that a person's Ki can be so strong that it can penetrate beyond the body into a target and destroy or even heal the target without even touching it. So basically, ki manifests itself in the form of actual physical energy. This is very close to the idea we mentioned with Asta's sword. It could either be released in the form of ki blast from a distance, or perhaps by touching a person, ki is released to put more energy into that contact and do additional damage. Then there's the idea that ki can affect a person's desire by corresponding with behavioral structure. So in an abstract way, you can assume that in Black Clover it might be possible to use ki to manipulate people's behavior. Maybe make them feel or see things that aren't there. Who knows, maybe Ryo even did that to some extent with Asta. We know that Asta doesn't sense a powerful presence from Ryo. It could either be that Ryo is able to hide his own ki, or he just made Asta believe that Ryo is not that strong. You can see it in both ways. My partner will now continue with more concepts of ki. Enjoy!
In Japanese culture, it is often believed that ki can be used as a source of resultant power. For example, ancient people saw forces based on ki in the atmosphere that could influence the natural environment. This basically went so far that they believed they could control the weather. How this could be applied to Black Clover is pretty self-explanatory. Theoretically, Asta could create certain elements using ki. Neither do I think that Asta could start controlling the weather. That would be a bit too far away from what we are used to from Black Clover so far. But if we assume, for example, that Asta can control the ki in the environment, which is based on the same principle, then he could basically control everything around him to some degree. In which case, again, his magic swords are very useful. It is also believed that ki can increase blood flow, bringing with it more oxygen and vital nutrients. These nutrients could accelerate tissue growth and structure development, which as mentioned could be used for healing. This could solve the very problem we have encountered in the last few chapters. The way Asta's injury was healed doesn't make sense if we assume healing magic. Healing magic doesn't leave a scar in such a short time. Advanced healing magic would have either removed the injury entirely, or if normal healing magic was used, it would have only closed the wound, not healed it completely. The body would then heal itself over time, resulting in a new scar. And neither is the case, because Asta was healed immediately and did not have enough time to develop such a scar. So it must be either something like time magic, or as mentioned in the previous videos, a method that only exists in the land of the rising sun. It is not unlikely that ki was used to influence Asta's body to progress the healing process faster. Of course, this could mean that perhaps even Asta himself is able to use some sort of healing method on himself. This would definitely be very helpful in combat, as it is usually his biggest problem, an injury that prevents him from continuing to fight. Especially when the same thing happens as in the Spade Kingdom against Lucifero, when Asta's anti-magic began to leak out of his body and even Mimosa was unable to heal Asta properly. If he manages to fix that, he will almost be unstoppable. Of course, he would then be able to heal other people as well, which is very useful. Another strong belief in Japanese culture is that ki works at the psychosomatic level to get better reaction time. For example, not only can you predict the opponent's movement by reading their ki, but you can react to it faster because your brain function is basically increased. A professor from Kyoto University said that ki represents not only the concept of the appearance of nature, but also the direct function of human beings with it. In this sense, ki is something like the radio waves between people and objects, and the ability to create certain connections. For Black Clover, this could mean that ki can not only be used by a person, but it can also interact with others. This would fit with the example of manipulating the minds of people, basically a possible connection that Asta could use between him and anything that has ki, whether it may be a person or an object. Any possible power based on such connection could then be invented by Tabata. Then of course, there is the idea that ki can only be used to a certain extent. This means that just like with mana, you basically have a certain amount of ki available to use until you can no longer use certain abilities. But just as someone can use up all of their ki, it is also believed that some have the ability to recharge their ki from others, something like stealing ki from other people or nature. Another belief is that ki can be used to increase blood levels of adrenaline and testosterone, as well as most other male hormones and steroids. This enriched amount of androgens and energy molecules makes people behaviorally and biologically more confident. So, instead of making the blood flow faster as previously explained, and thus making the body work more effectively, in this case the body is basically being additionally doped. In Black Clover, this could be described as something like a berserk form. In any case, an interesting idea that could lead to a new transformation. That's all you need to know about the Japanese understanding of ki, at least when it comes to how it might be applied to Black Clover. So, it's always about the person using ki and the relationship between the person and the other things, like objects or people. With that in mind, the idea of a ki zone is very likely. We know the Ryu has stated that there are 7 Ryuzen that will teach Asta to most likely master ki. Perhaps each of these 7 Ryuzen refers to a specific part of ki application. Why else are all 7 necessary to teach Asta everything he needs to know? Theoretically, Ichika would be enough. So, we can assume that Asta will learn 7 unique ki aspects and maybe even invent his very own ki technique. So, let's quickly summarize all the possibilities mentioned. First, ki zone. Second, Asta could use his anti-magic swords to control ki. Third, ki transformation or body doping. And the fourth, manipulation between his ki and the ki of another object or person in any way possible. That's it for today, folks. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to smash the like button, and if you're new to our channel, make sure you subscribe with the notification bell turned on. See you guys in the next video. Yami out.